kick things off today talking about the Knicks and the Wizards. What an exciting game tonight. Knicks are a 3.5-point favorite. I hope you guys could sense a little sarcasm in my voice there. Totals 233.5. Knicks just blew a double-digit lead to the Nets on Wednesday. The Wizards lost to the Hawks. Both of these teams already eliminated from the playoffs, so not a whole lot to play for tonight. So, Josh, how do you look at this game?
Yeah, not a lot to play for, and when that's the case, the first thing that goes out the window is defense more often than not, and I expect that to basically be the case in this one, looking at how the teams match up. The Wizards returning home for the past month, even more so, 5 weeks now. First game back off of a road game, they absolutely annihilate the full game total, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen again here today. Like I said, you have two teams out of contention and essentially with nothing to play for, and the Knicks in particular just giving those extra minutes now to their young guys. And those guys are taking advantage. Offensively, they look a lot more fluid, I think, than what they did at times in the season. And the pace of play has been notably higher than what it was for New York and what we come to expect, I think, from New York basketball, especially under Tom Thibodeau. So those things sort of, I think, all correlate in terms of how these teams will match up today. I think we get a little bit more of an up-tempo transition style game. The Wizards have just been overs machines basically since the All-Star break, particularly at home. And it's interesting because you look at all the matchups that they've had in those games, and they've played teams who are up pace, they've played teams who are bottom of the league pace, and yet, all those games consistently going over the number. And you look at the Wizards individually and their statistical profile, and they are second in the league at home in that stretch for effective field goal percentage. So those results and the numbers that they're putting up aren't necessarily outliers either. That means that they're actually generating good offense and they're getting to their spots, and ultimately those shots are falling for them as well. But even when they're not, I think the fact that they're able to generate what they are and to do so in a game like this, if it is played at a little bit higher tempo, means that they probably don't even need to shoot particularly efficiently either. As long as they're in and around their average, that should be enough in itself. So I think, yeah, that fortunate to get on this number when it opened at 220.5. I think at current market price, it's still fine. I know that Porzingis out, KCP out for Washington, that sort of dropped the total a little bit from its peak. Few people sort of asking about whether it's still playable. I think the short answer here is yes. I don't think that the value over replacement player for Washington is particularly poor, especially when you consider that those two guys, especially Porzingis, doesn't exactly help you on the defensive end of the floor in any way, shape, or form. So, if anything, it might help them a little bit more and play at a higher pace, because you're not going to have to play through a star, particularly on offense. So, for me, everything still says the over here, and I expect this game to be basically the epitome of two teams who have nothing to play for and just go out and play carefree basketball.
Yeah, I've been impressed with the Wizards, how they've continued to play hard, have decent offense over these last few games, even when you don't really have much of a motivation to be playing for each and every night. Chris, any thoughts on this game in terms of taking the Knicks -3.5? Do you like Josh's total? What are you thinking?
I would stay away from the sides on this one, just because, it's a coin flip, right? Like Josh said, two teams who really don't care about this game. There's no like draft purpose for this one, a tankathon or anything like that. So it's just really a coin flip in this one. So if anything, maybe there's some value there with the dog. But I agree with Josh as far as the over goes. I gave this away at a play earlier today too, and that was at a less advantageous number. But so I have to like this number as well, right? The Wizards and how they've changed this year, it's really interesting, right? They started as kind of like a more blue-collar team, defensive team, right? And they got rid of Spencer Dinwiddie. They got rid of Montrezl Harrell, which, that kind of gave away some of that blue-collar mentality. Now here comes, soft Kristaps Porzingis, who is going to add, he's going to add a perimeter element to your game, right? He's going to add some offense, but he's probably going to take away on the defensive side. So the Wizards kind of remind me of the Wizards of old. Not great defense, but more pace, more offense. Hey, that's a recipe for a lot of overs. And I totally agree with Josh about the Knicks too. Just off that game against the Nets, where they played really hard on defense for 3.5 quarters, 2.5 quarters, and then the Nets took over. So I don't think the Knicks care about playing defense in this one. I definitely lean to the over here too.
If you look at the Wizards, 3 of their last 5 games, they've scored 132, 135, 127. So that's always great for an overs to be putting up numbers like that as a team total. So Josh is playing the over here, 23 and a half in the Knicks Wizards game.